Before we begin, I want you to do something for me. Don't worry, it won't take more than 5 seconds. Without grabbing a table, without pushing on your knees, could you stand up from the chair you're sitting in? Go ahead, I'll wait. If you did it comfortably, I have some good news. You're already doing something that millions of adults over 75 struggle to do every single day. But here's what worries me. Too many people think that because they can do it today, they'll automatically be able to do it next year. Unfortunately, that's not how aging works. After the age of 75, we rarely lose our independence overnight. Instead, it slips away so quietly that most people don't notice until the changes have already become difficult to reverse. One day you stop taking the stairs. A few weeks later, you avoid carrying groceries. Months pass, and suddenly getting out of a low chair feels like climbing a mountain. The frightening part isn't how fast it happens, it's how ordinary it feels while it's happening. I've seen it hundreds of times. Someone says, I'm just slowing down. Then 6 months later, they're relying on a walker. A year later, they're no longer driving. And everyone around them believes it was simply old age. But many times, it wasn't. It was the quiet disappearance of a few simple daily habits. Habits that protected their muscles, their balance, their memory, their confidence, and ultimately, their independence. Today, I'm going to share 6 of those habits with you. They're simple. They're backed by decades of research on healthy aging, and they're practiced almost every day by the older adults I've seen remain active well into their 80s and 90s. No miracle supplements, no expensive equipment, no impossible workouts. Just 6 ordinary habits that quietly produce extraordinary results over time. And I encourage you to stay with me until habit number 1, because it's the habit most people underestimate, yet it may have the biggest impact on how well you age over the next 10 years. Welcome, I'm Dr. Richard. For more than 20 years, I've worked with older adults and their families. During that time, I've noticed something fascinating. The people who stayed independent the longest rarely had perfect health. Many had arthritis, some had diabetes, others had heart disease. Yet somehow they continued gardening, traveling, walking without fear, and enjoying life long after many of their friends had become dependent on others. The difference wasn't perfect genetics. The difference wasn't expensive medicine. The difference was what they did every ordinary day. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. If you're watching this, perhaps you're 76, maybe you're 82, or maybe you're watching because you love someone who is. Perhaps you've noticed little changes. You're moving a little slower. You forget names more often. Your balance isn't quite what it used to be. Or maybe you simply want to stay independent for as long as possible. If that's you, you're in exactly the right place. Because healthy aging isn't about becoming younger. It's about protecting what still works, so you can continue enjoying the life you've built. Before we begin, I'd love to know who's watching today. Tell me your age and where you're watching from in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing viewers from all over the country, and your comments help me choose future topics. And if you're interested in practical, science-based advice for healthy aging, consider subscribing. Every week, I share evidence-based strategies designed specifically for adults over 65, explained in plain language that's easy to understand. Now, let's begin. Habit number 6. You still get up and move every single morning. Let me ask you something. What happens during the first hour after you wake up? Do you begin moving, or do you stay sitting for a long time? That first hour matters more than many people realize. During the night, your muscles become stiff. Your joints lose some lubrication. Blood pressure changes as you move from lying down to standing. If your body stays inactive for another hour after waking, everything slows down even more. Think of your body like an old bicycle. If it sits untouched in the garage for months, the chain becomes stiff. The tires lose air. The gears stop moving smoothly. But if someone rides it every day, even gently, it stays surprisingly dependable. Your body works much the same way. Morning movement tells your muscles, your joints, your heart, and even your brain it's time to wake up. And the movement doesn't have to be intense. 5 minutes of walking around your home, gentle stretching, standing while preparing breakfast, slow marching in place. Even these simple activities begin activating muscles that help protect balance throughout the rest of the day. I remember one patient, I'll call him Harold. He was 79. Every morning, he stayed in his recliner watching television until nearly noon. When he first came to see me, he complained of stiffness that lasted most of the day. Instead of prescribing another medication, we made one small change. Every morning, before turning on the television, he walked slowly through his house for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. 6 weeks later, he smiled and said, "Doctor, I finally feel like my mornings belong to me again." That's the power of consistency. Not perfection, consistency. Science behind it. Research consistently shows that regular daily movement supports muscle function, circulation, joint mobility, and overall physical independence as we age. Even light activity accumulated throughout the day is associated with better health compared with prolonged sitting. The important message isn't to exercise harder, it's to move more often. Simple action. Tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, before watching the news, before sitting down with coffee, move for 10 minutes. Walk, stretch, stand. Your future self will thank you. Mini cliffhanger. Now, if you think movement is important, wait until you hear habit number 5, because this next habit protects something even more valuable than your muscles. It protects your balance. Habit number 5. You still challenge your balance every day. Let me ask you another question. When was the last time you stood on one foot? Not because you had to, not because you were about to put on a shoe, just to see if you still could. Most people over 75 never even think about it, until one day their balance disappears. Here's something many people don't realize. Falls rarely happen because someone suddenly becomes weak. Most falls begin weeks, sometimes months, before the fall itself. Your brain slowly becomes less efficient at communicating with your muscles. Your ankles become a little slower. Your reaction time fades just enough. Your confidence begins to shrink. Then something ordinary happens. A loose rug, a wet sidewalk, a missed curb, a toy left on the floor by a grandchild. And suddenly, life changes. I've met patients who recovered from heart attacks faster than they recovered from losing confidence after one fall. Because after that first fall, many people stop walking. They stop shopping. They stop visiting friends. Not because they can't, because they're afraid. And fear can steal independence just as quickly as illness. A story I'll never forget. A gentleman I'll call Walter came to see me shortly after his 80th birthday. Physically, he wasn't in bad shape. His blood pressure looked good. His cholesterol was controlled. His heart was healthy. But he had fallen while stepping off a curb. Thankfully, nothing was broken. Yet something else had fractured: his confidence. Within 3 months, he had stopped walking around his neighborhood. 6 months later, his leg muscles had become noticeably weaker, not because he was aging faster, because he stopped using them. The fall didn't make him weak, the fear did. That story has stayed with me for years. What balance really is. Many people believe balance comes from strong legs. That's only part of the picture. Balance actually depends on 3 systems working together: your eyes, your inner ears, and tiny sensors in your muscles and joints that constantly tell your brain where your body is in space. Think about it like driving a car. If one tire loses air, you'll still move, but the ride becomes unstable. When 2 systems weaken, the steering becomes much harder. That's exactly what happens as we age. The encouraging news? Your balance system continues responding to practice even later in life. Your brain is constantly learning. It wants reminders. The more safely you challenge your balance, the better your body becomes at correcting itself before a fall ever happens. What research shows? Studies consistently show that balance-focused exercise can reduce fall risk in older adults, especially when practiced regularly over time. Even simple activities, performed for just a few minutes most days, can improve stability, confidence, and walking ability. That's important because preventing the first fall is often much easier than recovering from one. Simple things you can start today. You don't need special equipment. You don't need a gym. You don't need to be athletic. Start small. Stand behind a sturdy kitchen chair. Hold the back of it. Lift one foot for 5 seconds. Then switch. As you become more confident, try 10 seconds, then 15. Heel to toe walking along your kitchen counter. Slow side steps. Gentle marching in place. These aren't just exercises, they're investments in your independence. Important. If you already have poor balance, dizziness, or a history of falls, make sure you have sturdy support nearby and speak with your healthcare provider or physical therapist before starting new balance exercises. The hidden bonus. Here's something I love telling my patients. Balance training isn't only helping your legs. Every time your brain adjusts your posture, it's solving tiny problems, thousands of them. That constant communication keeps your brain and body connected. You're strengthening movement, attention, coordination, and confidence, all at the same time. That's a remarkable return on just a few minutes each day. If you're finding today's video helpful, would you do one small thing for me? Click the like button below. It may seem like a tiny action, but it helps YouTube recommend these videos to more older adults who want reliable, practical information about healthy aging. And if you've already learned something new today, let me know by writing "still strong" in the comments. I genuinely enjoy reading your experiences. Now, balance helps keep you on your feet. But there's something even more important, because even the strongest muscles can't do their job if they don't have the right building blocks. And that's exactly what habit number 4 is all about. It's one of the biggest nutritional mistakes I see adults over 75 make, often without realizing it. Let's talk about why your muscles may be asking for something you've been giving them far too little of: protein. Habit number 4. You still eat enough protein at every meal. Let me ask you something. What did you eat for breakfast this morning? Toast? A bowl of cereal? Maybe just coffee? If that's all you had, you're not alone. In fact, one of the biggest nutrition mistakes I see after age 75 isn't eating too much. It's eating far too little protein. And the consequences don't show up overnight. They show up quietly. One grocery bag becomes too heavy. Getting out of the bathtub takes more effort. Walking uphill feels harder than it used to. Then someone says, well, that's just old age. But many times, it isn't. It's muscle loss. And muscle loss is not an unavoidable part of getting older. It happens faster when we stop giving our bodies the nutrients they need. The muscle bank account. I want you to imagine your muscles as a savings account. When you're young, your body makes deposits almost effortlessly. You recover quickly, you build muscle easily. You can skip meals, stay active, and your body usually bounces back. But after 75, the rules change. Your body starts making withdrawals every single day. If you aren't putting enough protein back in, the account slowly empties. You won't notice it after one day, or even 1 month. But after a few years, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. That's why two people of the same age can look completely different. One walks confidently through the airport carrying luggage. The other struggles to stand up from a restaurant chair. The difference often isn't age, it's muscle. Margaret's story. I'd like to tell you about a woman I'll call Margaret. She was 78, bright, funny, always beautifully dressed. When she came into my office, she wasn't worried about losing weight. She was worried about losing strength. "I don't understand," she said. "I haven't changed anything." When we talked about her meals, everything suddenly made sense. Breakfast was tea and toast. Lunch was soup. Dinner was a very small piece of chicken with vegetables. She simply wasn't eating enough protein. Not because she didn't care, because nobody had ever explained how much her body had changed. We gradually added protein to every meal. Greek yogurt with breakfast, beans at lunch, fish or chicken at dinner. Nothing extreme, nothing expensive. 3 months later, she wasn't talking about food anymore. She was talking about gardening again. She was carrying her own groceries. She even laughed and told me, "I beat my grandson at carrying the laundry basket upstairs." That's the kind of victory that doesn't make headlines, but it changes lives. Why protein matters more after 75. Here's something many people don't know. As we age, our muscles become less responsive to protein. Scientists sometimes call this anabolic resistance. It simply means your muscles need a stronger signal to repair and maintain themselves than they did when you were younger. Imagine trying to wake someone with very deep sleep. When they were 25, a gentle knock on the door was enough. At 75, you may have to knock louder. Protein is that louder knock. Without enough of it, your muscles don't receive the message to rebuild. And when muscles aren't rebuilt, they slowly shrink. Not because your body is failing, because it doesn't have the raw materials it needs. What the research suggests. Research consistently shows that older adults who consume enough protein, combined with regular physical activity, are more likely to maintain muscle strength, physical function, and independence as they age. Protein alone isn't a miracle. Exercise alone isn't enough either. Together, they form one of the strongest partnerships for healthy aging. Think of exercise as telling your muscles, "We need you." Think of protein as giving them the tools to answer that call. Both matter. How much do you really need? Many experts suggest aiming for a good source of protein at each meal rather than trying to eat it all at once. That might include eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, chicken, turkey, fish, beans, lentils, tofu. Nuts and seeds can contribute too, though they generally contain less protein per serving. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Every meal becomes another opportunity to protect the muscles that help you walk, lift, climb stairs, and stay independent. A simple habit that makes a big difference. Tomorrow morning, before you prepare breakfast, ask yourself one question. Where's my protein? Not tomorrow afternoon, not tonight, tomorrow morning. That one question can gradually change the way you eat for years to come. Small questions often lead to big improvements. Don't forget this. If you have kidney disease or another medical condition that affects your diet, talk with your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian before making major changes to your protein intake. Healthy aging should always be personalized. Can I ask you something? What's your favorite source of protein? Is it eggs, fish, chicken, Greek yogurt, beans, or something else? Tell me in the comments below. You might even give another viewer a great idea for tomorrow's breakfast. And if you've made it this far, thank you. That tells me you're serious about protecting your health. Transition to habit number 3. Now, strong muscles help you move. Good balance helps keep you upright. But neither one can perform well if your brain spends every night running on empty. Because there's one habit that quietly affects your memory, your energy, your immune system, and even your mood. And most people don't realize they're getting it wrong. Let's talk about sleep and why it may be one of the most underestimated pillars of healthy aging. Habit number 3. You still sleep on a consistent schedule. Before I tell you about this next habit, I want you to answer one question honestly. When was the last time you woke up feeling truly refreshed? Not just awake, refreshed, ready to start the day. For many adults over 75, it's been a long time. They tell me, "Doctor, I sleep 8 hours. But when we talk a little longer, I discover they wake up 4 or 5 times during the night. They fall asleep in front of the television. They nap for 2 hours every afternoon, or they stay awake until midnight watching one more episode because they simply don't feel sleepy. Here's the surprising part: healthy aging isn't just about how long you sleep, it's about how regular your sleep becomes. And that's a lesson many people never hear. Why sleep changes after 75? When you're younger, your body has a remarkable internal clock. Every evening, your brain quietly prepares you for sleep. Your body temperature drops, hormones shift, your muscles begin to relax. But as we grow older, that clock doesn't stop working. It simply becomes less predictable. You may become sleepy earlier, wake earlier, sleep more lightly, or find yourself waking several times throughout the night. That's common. But common doesn't mean it should be ignored, because poor sleep affects far more than your energy. It affects nearly every system in your body. The silent repair crew. I like to think of sleep as the overnight repair crew. Imagine your home. Every night, a team quietly arrives. They repair loose floorboards, replace worn pipes, clean the windows, fix small cracks before they become major problems. Now imagine that crew only works for 2 hours instead of 8. At first, you wouldn't notice much, but after weeks, little problems begin piling up. Then months later, the house suddenly looks much older than it really is. Your body works the same way. During healthy sleep, your brain organizes memories. Your muscles recover from the day's activities. Your immune system prepares for tomorrow. Your heart and blood vessels get time to rest. Without enough quality sleep, those repairs become less efficient. Not impossible, just incomplete, night after night. A patient I'll never forget. Several years ago, I met a retired school principal. I'll call her Evelyn. She was 81, sharp, independent, always well organized. But she came into my office convinced something was terribly wrong. She said, "I'm forgetting little things. I walk into a room and can't remember why. I'm afraid I'm losing my mind." Naturally, she worried about dementia. So we talked, not just about memory, about her daily routine. She admitted something she'd never mentioned before. She'd been staying up until nearly 1 o'clock every morning, watching television because she didn't feel tired. Then she'd sleep late, nap after lunch, and repeat the cycle. Instead of adding another medication, we focused on rebuilding a consistent sleep routine. She began waking at the same time every morning, opening her curtains to sunlight, limiting long afternoon naps, turning off the television an hour before bed. It wasn't perfect overnight, but within several weeks, she smiled and said something I'll never forget. "I feel like my brain has finally caught up with me." Her memory wasn't perfect. None of ours is. But she was thinking more clearly. She had more energy, and perhaps most importantly, she felt hopeful again. What research tells us. Research consistently shows that poor sleep quality is associated with reduced attention, slower thinking, lower mood, and an increased risk of falls in older adults. Sleep also plays an important role in how the brain processes memories and clears away normal metabolic waste that builds up during the day. No single night's sleep determines your future, but the pattern you repeat night after night matters. What helps? You don't need an elaborate bedtime routine. You need a consistent one. Try going to bed at roughly the same time each evening. Wake up at about the same time each morning, even on weekends. Get outside for natural daylight soon after waking whenever possible. Keep your bedroom cool, quiet, and dark. Avoid heavy meals and alcohol close to bedtime if they tend to disrupt your sleep. And if you enjoy an afternoon nap, keep it short. Around 20 to 30 minutes is often enough to refresh you without making nighttime sleep more difficult. One habit that makes a bigger difference than people expect. Here's one simple habit I've recommended for years. About an hour before bedtime, turn off the television, put down the phone, find something calming, read a book, listen to quiet music, pray, meditate, write in a journal. Your brain needs a gentle landing, not another hour of stimulation. Think of it this way. You wouldn't expect a car traveling 70 miles an hour to stop instantly. Your mind deserves the same gradual slowdown. When to talk with your doctor. If you're snoring loudly, gasping during sleep, waking up choking, or feeling exhausted despite sleeping for many hours, please mention it to your healthcare provider. Conditions like sleep apnea become more common as we age and are often very treatable. Good sleep isn't a luxury, it's part of good health. Transition to habit number 2. So far, we've talked about movement, balance, protein, and sleep. But now we're coming to a habit that surprises almost everyone. It doesn't involve food, it doesn't involve exercise, and you won't find it in a bottle. Yet study after study suggests it may have a powerful influence on how well we age. It's something every human being needs, but many older adults quietly lose without realizing it. Let's talk about the healing power of real human connection. Habit number 2. You still have one real conversation every day. Let me ask you something. Who was the last person you had a real conversation with? Not someone who simply said, "Good morning," not the cashier at the grocery store, not the delivery driver who left a package at your door. I mean a genuine conversation, one where you talked, listened, laughed, shared a memory, or simply asked each other, "How are you, really?" If you have to stop and think about it, you're not alone. One of the quietest changes that happens after retirement isn't physical, it's social. Without realizing it, many people begin seeing fewer friends. Children get busy, neighbors move away, driving becomes less convenient. One missed lunch becomes two. One cancelled phone call becomes a month of silence. Little by little, the world becomes smaller. And the heartbreaking part is, it often happens to wonderful people. Not because they wanted to be alone, life simply changed around them. A story that changed my perspective. A few years ago, I cared for a gentleman I'll call Frank. He was 83. His blood pressure looked good. His cholesterol was controlled. His diabetes was stable. On paper, he was healthier than many people his age. But every time he came to see me, something felt different. He smiled less, spoke less, moved more slowly. Finally, during one visit, I asked him, "What does a normal week look like for you?" He looked down for a moment, then quietly said, "Doctor, some days you're the only person I talk to." That sentence has stayed with me ever since. Not because it was dramatic, because it was honest. After his wife passed away, his social life slowly disappeared. Nobody planned it. Nobody meant for it to happen. It simply did. Your brain was built for conversation. Here's something remarkable. Human beings are social creatures. From the very beginning of life, our brains developed through interaction. Every conversation asks your brain to perform hundreds of tiny tasks: listening, understanding, remembering, choosing words, reading facial expressions, responding, laughing, empathizing. It's one of the most complete workouts your brain can receive. Think of conversation like dancing. Two people constantly adjusting to each other's rhythm. Your brain loves that challenge. It keeps important neural pathways active. That's one reason many researchers believe maintaining meaningful social connections is associated with healthier cognitive aging and emotional well-being. Loneliness doesn't always look lonely. Here's something many people misunderstand. Loneliness isn't measured by how many people surround you. Someone can live alone and feel deeply connected. Someone else can live in a busy household and still feel completely isolated. The difference isn't the number of people nearby, it's whether you feel genuinely seen. heard, and valued. Those moments matter more than most people realize. What the research suggests. Research consistently shows that strong social relationships are associated with better physical health, improved emotional well being, and a lower risk of depression in older adults. People who maintain meaningful relationships also tend to stay physically active longer. They often eat better, keep medical appointments, recover more successfully after illness. No conversation is a magic cure, but over months and years, staying socially connected appears to be one of the healthiest investments we can make. Small conversations count. Now, before you think, I don't have a large family, or my friends have all moved away, let me tell you something encouraging. Your conversation doesn't have to last an hour. Sometimes, 10 meaningful minutes is enough. Call your sister, visit your neighbor, meet someone for coffee, attend your local library program, join a walking group, volunteer one afternoon each week. Even chatting with another person while walking through the park can brighten your day in ways you might not expect. The goal isn't having hundreds of friends, the goal is staying connected. One challenge for tomorrow. Tomorrow, I want you to call one person, not text, call. Ask them how they're doing, share a memory, tell them something that made you smile today. You might be surprised. That phone call could help both of you. I'd love to hear from you. Who is someone that has made your life better over the years? A spouse, a lifelong friend, a sibling, a neighbor, or even a grandchild? Write their first name in the comments. Let's fill the comment section with gratitude and remind ourselves how important meaningful relationships truly are. Transition to habit number 1. So far, we've talked about movement, balance, protein, sleep, and human connection. Each one is important. But now we've reached the habit that surprised me the most during my years as a physician. It isn't the hardest, it isn't the most expensive, yet it's the one I see shared again and again by people who remain mentally sharp, emotionally resilient, and full of purpose well into their 80s and 90s. In fact, if you stop doing this one habit, the other 5 become much harder to maintain. Let's talk about the habit that may be the greatest predictor of healthy aging. Continuing to learn and having a reason to wake up every morning. Habit number 1. You still learn something new and wake up with a purpose. We finally reached habit number 1, and I have to admit, when I first began practicing medicine, I underestimated just how important this habit really was. I thought staying healthy was mostly about blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, exercise, nutrition. Those things absolutely matter. But after watching thousands of older adults over the years, I noticed something extraordinary. The people who aged the best weren't just taking care of their bodies, they were giving their minds a reason to keep growing. Because here's a truth that changed the way I think about aging: your brain doesn't retire unless you ask it to. The biggest mistake I see after retirement. Retirement is something many people spend decades looking forward to. No more alarm clocks, no more deadlines, no more meetings. For the first few weeks, it feels wonderful, sometimes even the first few months. But eventually, something unexpected happens. Without realizing it, many people stop being challenged. Every day begins looking exactly like the day before. Wake up, watch television, eat lunch, take a nap, watch more television, go to bed, repeat. Now, please don't misunderstand me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with relaxing. After years of hard work, you've earned that. The problem begins when every day becomes predictable, because your brain was never designed for permanent retirement. It was designed to solve problems, learn, adapt, create, explore. When those challenges disappear, parts of the brain become less active simply because they're no longer being used. Think about a beautiful garden. If someone waters it, pulls weeds, plants new flowers. It continues growing season after season. But if it's left untouched, nature slowly takes over. The same thing happens inside the brain. Growth doesn't stop because of age. Growth stops when we stop asking the brain to grow. A patient who taught me an important lesson. Several years ago, I met a retired carpenter named George. He was 84. When he first walked into my office, I expected to see someone slowing down. Instead, he practically bounced into the room. His posture was excellent. His memory was sharp. His energy amazed everyone. Naturally, I asked him, "George, what's your secret?" He smiled, then reached into his bag. He pulled out a notebook. Inside were pages filled with Spanish vocabulary. I laughed and asked, "You're learning Spanish?" He smiled even bigger. "No, I'm struggling to learn Spanish." Every morning, for nearly an hour, he practiced new words. Some days he remembered them, some days he forgot, but every day he challenged himself. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Doctor, if my grandchildren can keep learning, why should I stop?" That sentence has stayed with me ever since. Because George understood something many people never do. Growing older isn't a reason to stop learning. It's one of the best reasons to keep going. The brain loves a challenge. People often ask me, "Doctor, should I do crossword puzzles?" Crossword puzzles are wonderful. Reading is wonderful too. So are Sudoku, word games, and card games. But here's the secret. The brain grows the most when it encounters something unfamiliar. Something just difficult enough to make you think. Learning to paint, playing a musical instrument, taking a photography class, learning computer skills, trying a new recipe, speaking a few words of another language, writing your family history, building a birdhouse, even learning how to use a smartphone more confidently. The activity itself isn't what's most important. The challenge is. When you struggle, your brain begins building new connections. And that's exactly what we want. But there's something even more powerful. Learning keeps the brain active. Purpose keeps the heart engaged. Because here's what I've discovered. The healthiest older adults almost always have something waiting for them tomorrow. A garden that needs watering, a volunteer group expecting them on Tuesday, a grandchild they're teaching to bake, a church choir rehearsal, a fishing trip with an old friend, a woodworking project in the garage, a dog waiting for its morning walk. Notice something? None of those activities are extraordinary. They're ordinary, but together, they create something extraordinary. A reason to get out of bed, a reason to stay active, a reason to keep moving forward. Purpose doesn't have to change the world. Sometimes, it only needs to change your day. A question worth asking yourself. When you wake up tomorrow morning, what will you be looking forward to? Take a moment, really think about it. If nothing comes to mind, don't be discouraged. Instead, make that your next project. Find one thing, just one, something that makes tomorrow feel different from today. Because purpose isn't something we discover once, it's something we continue creating at every stage of life. The 6 habits that help you age better. Let's quickly look back at what we've covered today. You begin each morning with gentle movement. You challenge your balance regularly. You eat enough protein to support your muscles. You protect your sleep with a consistent routine. You stay connected through meaningful conversations. And you continue learning while living with purpose. Notice something? None of these habits require perfect health. None require expensive equipment. None require extraordinary talent. They're all simple. They're all practical. And every one of them can begin today. Final message. Before we say goodbye, I want you to look at your hands one more time. Those hands have worked hard. They've built homes, raised children, held loved ones close, prepared countless meals, solved problems, comforted friends. They tell the story of a life filled with experience. Growing older doesn't erase that story, it adds another chapter. And the choices you make today help decide how that chapter is written. Remember, healthy aging isn't about trying to become 30 again. It's about giving yourself the best chance to remain strong, independent, curious, and connected for as many years as possible. One walk, one healthy meal, one phone call, one good night's sleep, one new lesson. Small choices, repeated often. That's how remarkable aging happens. Final C, T A. If today's video encouraged you, I'd like you to do one simple thing. Type the word strong in the comments below. It's a promise to yourself that you're choosing progress over excuses and healthy habits over giving up. And if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love to welcome you to our community. Every week, we explore practical, evidence-based ways to help you stay active, protect your memory, strengthen your body, and enjoy the years ahead with confidence. Finally, if you know someone, a parent, spouse, sibling, or close friend who's over the age of 75, please share this video with them. One conversation, one shared video, one new habit could make a meaningful difference in someone's life. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I'm Dr. Richard. Until next time, stay curious, stay active, and remember, your age is just one number. Your daily habits tell the real story.